Cool. So this is episode 36 of the NWC Show, and if you would like to introduce yourself.
I am Alex Webb. I am a professional wrestler from Scotland, as well as a full-time YouTuber now, which is cool.
Cool introduction, man. You're doing something that I want to do. I've been binging your YouTube all day since I finished work. When I messaged you, I've just been sitting binging it, and this morning as well. Those retro wrestling games are bringing back a lot of memories. I've got the N64 out for tonight, so that's going to be fun.
Funny you mentioned that. Like, I get a lot of people asking me to do all the Day of Reckoning games, as well as No Mercy and WCW Revenge Tour or whatever. And I'm like, I'll get to them eventually, but at the moment, I've just got so much that I really want to do, and it's cool to see people kind of watching it and enjoying it as well, because I'm just making dumb stuff, so it's cool to see that.
No, man, it's fun. It's really fun. It's refreshing, especially now that there's a format for people reviewing or talking about games. You just you've done it differently. I'm a fan already, so
by done it differently, I put Mr. Robot, Breaking Bad, and Spider-Man references every 5 minutes.
That's what I'm here for, to be honest with you, man. It's just
lovely stuff.
So the first question we always start these week is, what got you into wrestling? What was that moment you were like, this is my jam, I want to do this?
I've been asked this before, and I feel like the question kind of changes every time. But the one definitive moment I can remember is I went to Ayr to visit my granddad with my mum. And he was a big fan of wrestling, big fan of movies and TV shows in general. TV show. We're all a fan of movies. Anyway, he was a big fan of wrestling. So I mind one night he put on, it must have been a SmackDown episode with King Booker and Rey Mysterio, because that was a whole feud going on at that time. I just got sucked in from there. I didn't keep up with it that much until I kind of picked up playing the games, and that kind of reignited my passion, and I just started watching wrestling from there on out. So I would say around about 2006, I kind of started watching it because of my granddad, and then the games kind of made me really interested in how matches were put together and moves and stuff like that. As the TV shows were kind of like all the big characters and pageantry.
Yeah. So for me, growing up, it was a little bit. I'm obviously a bit older, so it was that Attitude Era. That's when I started getting into it, and just how crazy that was. It was like you just flipped it on, and you were like, what the hell is this?
The thing is, everyone's like, oh, 1998 was the best year for WWE, and I was like, I was just born that year.
Man, I was 7 that year, so when people are like, it was the best year, I'm like, I don't remember it. I was a child.
Yeah, I feel like retroactively, everyone's always like, oh, the Attitude Era is really good and whatnot, and you go back and watch it, and there'll be some stuff that's really cool, and there'll be other stuff where you're like Mae Young giving birth to a hand, and you're like, no, I get that.
But I always bring that one up as well when everybody goes, the Attitude Era was great, and it's they had good moments that you can look back and be like, that's a cool moment because they pushed the envelope in wrestling. Yeah. But the hand thing, the Val Venus getting his penis chopped off,
you just remind choppy your pee-pee, yes.
Yeah. Man, that was stuck in my head for 2 weeks. Every time I try to do these podcasts, I'm like, don't bring up the Val Venus thing because it gets stuck in there, and I always do. It always just pops in, but. That Attitude Era was good to grow up in when I was in school and stuff like that, because you just got into so much trouble, saying suck it to the teacher, stunting on your friends and stuff like that. But it was.
I always feel like I kind of got into it really late for my age, because 2006 I would have been 8 or 9 or 10 at least, and I kind of didn't really keep up with it from then until I was I would like to say 12, 13. That's when I really started enjoying wrestling. So I feel like I got into it quite late. So obviously I went back and rewatched a lot of stuff, a lot of TNA stuff, a lot of WWE stuff, and now obviously, and back then it was scouring hours on YouTube just trying to find one match. Now it's just click of a button. So,
man, see, every time we talk about this with anybody, I always feel like such an old man. It's you don't know what it was like back in my day when we had to go find DVDs and VHSs and stuff like that, and it's just you don't know how lucky your kids, but it is true, because back then it was really hard. If you missed it on TV, you missed the catch-up stuff. Yeah. That was it. You didn't get to see it.
I think my only for the longest time, because my mum didn't want to buy me Sky Sports, and rightfully so, because I would only use it to watch wrestling. And she was also like, Liam, I don't want you watching this because I've said my shoot name. Great. I don't want you watching this because I don't want you doing this wrestling stuff. Don't worry, Mum, I'll never do it. Obviously that didn't pan out too well, but no, my only exposure to it was a WWE Experience, watching it on Sky One. for the longest amount of time. But I still remember really enjoying that and just like watching all the catch-up stuff for Raw, SmackDown, the NXT live show, not live show, the NXT like talent show that they had before it was like actually NXT, so like the game show or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mind watching all that stuff and just taking it all in.
Yeah, I think when I was growing up, it was the same. Like my mum was like we're not getting Sky and stuff like that. Like back then, it was like expensive to get Sky. Like in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was like pretty dear. So they were like, "You're not getting it." And then she was like, "I don't want you doing this at all." So when I first started wrestling training, when I was like 12 or 13, I used to sneak off and be like, "I've got a weekend job." You know what I mean? Like kid on, I'm going there, come back. She's like, "Where did you get paid?" And I'm like, "Oh, next week." And I started like keep my pocket money and being like, "Look, I got paid."
Because like where I stay, like there wasn't like a close wrestling school. I had to kind of be open and honest with my mum, and I was kind of like, "Yeah, this is what I'm doing." And she was a bit tentative at first because obviously I think when you hear wrestling, you see all like the guys getting thrown about and whatnot, and all the punches, and oh, that'll hurt. And then I think the more I kind of explained it to her, the more she was kind of started to become really supportive about it. And like her and my partner are really supportive of wrestling as well, so it's all really good.
Yeah, man, I was in the city centre of Glasgow, and it was up in Linwood, so it was a trek from where I lived on a Sunday as well. So it was like one bus. If you missed it, there was no way getting home, and I just totally lied. And then I'm looking back, I'm like, "What? That's like so dangerous!" Like just to totally like, but like, oh no, I'm going to a job somewhere else. You know what I mean, like just if I went missing, just would never find me because nobody would know where I was. But I was in the middle of a industrial estate getting through around, which is pretty cool.
It's definitely a story anyway.
Aye, definitely is, man. So what kind of, obviously, like, when did you start wrestling training? That'll be a question.
I left like high school in 2016. And I wasn't really doing anything with my time. I was doing what most 18-year-olds do and just going out drinking with my mates and stuff like that. And I kind of got bored of that, and I started college, and I wasn't really too invested in it, so I was trying to think of something to do, and I always wanted to do wrestling. So I was like, you know what? I've always said I'll do it. I'll give it a go. So I found the closest school, which was like a school. I stay in Perth, so it was a school up in Dundee. Which meant I had to track down train times and find out where it was. And I just started training there, and I think it was definitely an eye-opening experience to start running the ropes, because the first time you hit those ropes, you expect it to be nice, comfy, cushiony ropes, and then your back just gets ripped to shreds, and you're like, this is how it feels. But no, it was definitely an eye-opening experience, and I think from there I started to really just kind of love it more, and started like obviously learning how to take a bump, how to do moves, until I eventually got on shows, and now I'm just kind of like training it. I'm now kind of training elsewhere, and I feel like I'm getting a lot more experience just wrestling for different shows and stuff like that. Well, I was wrestling for different shows up until 2020.
So how have you, coming into obviously talk about 2020, how did you find the COVID period being a wrestler? Have you just been like a pure...
I think come the end of 2019, I was starting to get really be better with my fitness and overall getting in shape and stuff like that. I was starting to actually get a lot more opportunities. Like in terms of Scotland, I had wrestled for like Discovery, Source, wrestled pretty like a fairly big tag team in More Than Hype was my last match. And then for it to just kind of stop like that, and like me not to be able to go to the gym and like starting to see my physique go back to what it was a couple of years ago, and I'm like, oh, I feel horrible about myself. But I think like I was kind of fortunate because I had other creative outlets. Like we mentioned YouTube, like that was my main creative outlet throughout a lot of the pandemic, just kind of like focusing all my time to that. But if you didn't have that creative outlet, I feel like I would have been a lot worse off, and I don't know what I would have done with myself.
Definitely.
It was a difficult it was difficult in general, because going from training every like twice a sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, by the way.
That's fine. Just
going from like training like twice a week and going to the gym like I'll say 5 times a week, but you know, we'll estimate those numbers. But in general, just being a lot more good with my fitness and feeling like I'm getting somewhere to nothing at all. It was a hard transition.
Definitely, man. Don't worry about cutting me off or anything. That's a conversation. That's what I always say. It's just Just let it flow. Whatever happens.
I tend to stutter so much in my like if I don't have a script, I sound so bad. Like I'm just like this. So yeah, I've done a couple of podcasts before, and I've mentioned this every time. Just like if I'm stuttering, just give me 5 minutes.
Man, if anybody wants to hear me like be so monotone and like stutter, I used to write scripts when I first started this. So back, but like last year when the pandemic was kind of first starting, there was like no camera. I was just like recording into my phone, and I would be like, I just can't. I hate. I'm the worst. You put a script in front of me, that's it. I'm away.
I think in general with like when you're doing stuff, you'll find your own rhythm.
Aye.
Like my first videos are horrendous, but like you find your own rhythm with stuff, so it's cool to see like people progress as well.
Yeah, man, it's so fun. Like this year, I started the NWC Show, which is this podcast. Obviously, I'm at 36. I think I've only started like 2 months ago, but it's so fun. I love talking to wrestlers and stuff. The worst thing is it's given me the itch to get back into wrestling, and I left because I broke my neck and I've never went back. And I'm like, I don't know if I can go back, but it's really giving me the itch to kind of. I had Bobby Roberts on the other day, and he was like, "Why don't you come down and do a little bit of training? Could do like be a manager or something." I'm like, "Oh, don't tempt me!" Like I'm dying to get back into it, but
I hope you don't mind me asking, how did you like break your neck?
man, it's nothing like I could say it was a cool move. Like I got pile drive through a table or some shit. I was on the side of the ring. I fell off, and I just broke my neck. Like it wasn't a show. It was just the ring was set up. I was doing some practice stuff in it before the show, and I just like tumbled off it, broke my neck, and didn't go to the doctors for 7 weeks. So they were like, "Yeah, you've really fucked up your neck." By the way, you can swear and stuff like that as well. You don't need to worry about it.
Fuck! I was sitting there like I was gonna be like, "Holy shit!" and then I realized, and I was like, "I can't swear. Wait a minute."
I need to start telling people. It's the only people that worry about swearing are the Scottish guests that we've had on. Everybody else doesn't care, and I'm like, just
I'm keeping up the stereotype, definitely.
No, but that's how I done it. But 7 weeks later, the doctor was like, "You should have came here like straight away," and I was like, I was in Holland, and then I flew back, and it got worse when I was on the plane. Came to the hospital, and they were like, "Yeah,
I can imagine, man. Jesus Christ."
It's not a cool story. I used to say like it was like a cool wrestling move or something, but then I'm like, you know what? I'm too old to kind of kid on. Like I was just a clumsy person.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I know, man. I think COVID's one of those things that's made people kind of find like their passion as well, like something that they want to do.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of got me back into loving wrestling again, because I was watching it all the time, and I was like, oh, I need to start a YouTube channel, but my real like business and jobs and stuff was like ruining it. So then now I'm like just balls deep in this YouTube stuff.
I think like it's been a blessing and a curse, because it's gave people like a chance to relax and recharge the back. Maybe too long to relax, I'll say that, but it's giving people a chance to like recharge and kind of find like a new passion or whatnot. Whether that just be going out for a run or like reviewing films or just podcasts, just anything that they really are like wanting to do or be creative with. They might not keep it up, but like it's just a chance for people to like experiment and stuff, and it's good to see people doing that as well. Yeah, it's cool to see that. But again, it's obviously there's a lot more restrictions and meeting friends and like going outside and doing activities like training, going to the gyms, also just stuff that's been cut completely. So it's cool to see that coming back eventually.
Definitely, man. The worst thing as well is where I live, because I'm like literally in the west end of Glasgow, so they do like beer deliveries and stuff like that. So I can literally go for a run, exercise, and I'm in the best shape I've ever been as well. So I'm pure exercising all day, and then at night I'm like, I could just order like from a bar or stuff like that. Like it's
Deliveroo is my worst nightmare at the moment. Like because I stay with my my flatmate, so I'm just like, can I be arse cooking today? And then I'll just be like, can make something, and then KFC beckons me from my phone, and I'm like, you know what?
Man, it's hard for us. I stay quite close to where Brewdog is, and they deliver to me. So it's like you can get like 25 chicken wings and like 4 beers, and it's like £24. And I'm like, oh, every Friday, Saturday it kind of starts calling. I'm like, no, I need to stop it, because I need like the world's gone back to normal, and I'm like, just maybe last weekend. That's it.
Tell me about it. When shows come back on, I'll be like, do not book me until I look marginally better.
Dude, I need to lose some weight, but don't book me. So obviously, how long? Well, the next question we normally ask is, where do you see yourself being in 10 years? Do you see yourself being in like those big kind of WWE companies, AEW over in Japan? Where do you see yourself?
I'd never pitch myself as like a WWE guy. Just because like they won't. I don't think they'll hire anyone that speaks quite negatively of the company or says anything critical. And if you've seen my YouTube, you know for a fact that I wouldn't be touched by them with obviously all the stuff that I've kind of joked about and said, like the stuff I've said about Vince in some of my videos. Yeah. Well, it's funny. You don't like they wouldn't book me. They wouldn't hire me because of that. I think like an end goal hopefully would be somewhere like AEW or potentially just if I can like get up and down the UK and go to and like potentially have the one-off show in Germany, Dublin, Ireland, places like that. Just I don't see myself in one particular company. I just want to wrestle as many places as I possibly can. Sure, if like AEW comes knocking and be like, "Hey, we like your YouTube, kid. Here's the contract," and I'd be like, "You know what? Fair enough." But no, I never see myself as a WWE guy, because of obviously they do kind of like to do stuff their way. And I feel like, especially with the kind of third-party deals that they've recently done, where it's like you can't have like a Twitch stream unless it's WWE approved, or you can't have a YouTube channel unless it's WWE approved. I'm like, nah, wouldn't really work for me.
No, man, I think your kind of style would work well, like you say, it's like travelling around the UK and stuff like that, maybe over in Japan. Like, who knows if AEW is even going to be here in 10 years? There might be.
I had a friend because I was like on Twitter. I was like, how dare WWE do this one thing that they can probably do? I think I was because I think I was quite pissed about when they obviously did the stuff with Twitch and how they took independent contractors money from them. So I minded put a tweet out about that. And one of my friends was like, "Well, that's you fucked for that." And I was like, "I never seen myself going there, but I get what you're saying." But I was like, "Oh, there's always AEW." And then my friend was like, "That might not be there in like another couple of years, though, man. So you don't know." And I'm like, "You know what? That's fair enough." Like.
I think just WWE is that big. Like it's like working for Disney. Like you always work for Disney. Like WWE is that big. It's kind of just like they know that they are wrestling, but like they've like transcended away from like the wrestling bubble. They're just like, so you've got wrestling, then you've got WWE because they're their own thing.
You've got wrestling, and then a big world of sports entertainment as they like to brand themselves.
Definitely, man. But recently it's been, I don't know if you keep up with WWE and stuff like that, but it's been hard for me to do those reviews as well when I get up early to watch that 3-hour Raw.
I think in general, like nobody. If you're able to watch all of WWE's weekly programming, I commend you, because 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of SmackDown. There used to be a pay-per-view, and like a couple of years ago, there used to be a pay-per-view every 2 weeks. Obviously, they've kind of cut that down, but then you've got NXT as well. Do they still do main event?
Man, I only stick with NXT, SmackDown, and Raw because that's what I review. But that's like
main event 205 Live as well. Then, like, they've got so much weekly programming. There's like a plethora of stuff. Like NXT UK as well. Like
they've got I always hate saying this about NXT UK because it is good when you watch it, right? Like it's good wrestlers and stuff on it. Nothing against them, but like nobody watches it. Like really, barely anybody that I speak to watches it. I was watching it for a few weeks, and then I was just like, it's like 8 on a Thursday, and then there's like stuff I can do. And then
I think like in general, no one can watch like 10 hours of wrestling a week. Like you'll burn out eventually.
Definitely, man. There's just far too much. Like WrestleMania as well, been over 2 weekends. You've got the 2 nights for the Hall of Fame, the 2 nights for NXT. I was just like, that's too much, because I was doing my reviews on it as well. So I was like, oh Jesus, hurry up.
I think like because I don't really keep up with WWE a lot. I'll see stuff that people put on Twitter about. Like I'll see just like the big news that comes out of like Raw or SmackDown. That comes on Twitter, and if I can be arsed, I'll watch like the pay-per-views and stuff like that. Like WrestleMania was the first like WWE branded pay-per-view that I've watched for ages, and I think the only reason I really kind of dug it was because obviously they had the fans there, and it was like a different atmosphere to what we've had for like the past year or so. Mm-hmm. So it was cool, like, and I was really interested to see how they would pull that off legally and safely. But nah, in general, it was just cool to see, like, obviously wrestling with a crowd there, because I think a crowd is such an integral part of wrestling, and to see like so many shows now just have no crowd and performing in silence. I haven't had to do it, thankfully, because I don't think I'd like it very much. Um, but yeah, no, anyone that can wrestle in front of no one and have the same amount of like fire and energy that they do in like a match with a crowd, I commend you, because I would hate to just have a hard hitting wrestling match and have no crowd there to fill my adrenaline, just being like, oh, this is great. Like,
My first ever wrestling match was like, so I was like 14, and it was like the pre-show of like a pre-show. So it was like the like no, but the ring was just set up. There was like one granny in the audience.
had someone at least. Like,
Aye, like one person, but like there's more camera people at like the ICW stuff than what there is like that was there. So it was like just one person, nobody, and we were out there wrestling, and it hurts more. Like it's like you're like, and it's cold, and you can just they're watching everything that you do.
I can imagine, man. Like I've wrestled in front of a few people, but I've never had like no one in the crowd. So yeah, no, I can definitely see that.
I was like 14, but so I think they were just put this guy like as early as he can go, just in case like something goes wrong. Then like he's there, like he's a well before anybody else. And I don't even know if the granny was awake, but seemed like she was in it.
Fair enough. Just like checking one in a headlock rest hold, just be like, she awake, lad? Like,
you know what it's like as well. Sometimes with like wrestlers and stuff, like even the guys that I'm still friends with, they exaggerate stuff as well. Like, oh, there was like 50,000 people there, 7. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I feel like it does. It feels more though when you're like getting pumped up and you come up through the curtain. And like I had a match with it was my tag team, the Fair Sight Saints versus KOE, like a source show in just one of their units. And there wasn't that many people there. There was like, I want to say like 25, 30-ish. That's estimating highly. But like, and it didn't really matter because when we went out there and started doing stuff, they were all really into it. Mm-hmm. And then on the flip side, I've had like quite full crowds who have just not gave a shit about what we're doing. And I'm like, it just depends who you get, really.
Yeah, definitely, man. Like you can get those like there's no small net, like you said, 20, 25, which is in the high end, and they're pure into it, they're loving it, and you're like, oh, this is great. Then you have like the maybe like 50, 60, 100 people, and they're just sitting there like staring at you eating popcorn and stuff. You're like, what are you doing? Get into this, come on.
Yeah, it just depends, really. Like I feel like we as a wrestler always be like, oh, we want to put on like the best match possible, and we want to go out there and do like a 5-star New Japan Classic. And then that works for some crowds, don't get me wrong. But if you're going out there in front of like a more or less like a child, like a kid's show, or like a family show, I should say, and it's like, sure, you've got a big crowd there, but they're only really wanting to see like you as a character, and like they're not really that interested in how the match is put together. They want to see big man slam someone. So like, you know what I mean? Just you need to know your crowd. Like, and I'm not saying I'm great at that. I'm horrible at that from time to time. But like, you just need to. I think that's a learning curve for everyone, just adapting to your crowd.
Oh, definitely, man. Like I think it's just one of those things. You go out. Sometimes you want to go put on like a great match because you want to have a great match as well. Like, especially nowadays when you can put stuff on YouTube, social media is more prevalent than when I was when I was doing it. And like you want to go out there and try and put on a great match so somebody notices you, but it might be like you put on a great match and it's like the baby crying in the corner and stuff like that, and you're probably like, oh shit, this doesn't look great. But
I've had I've wrestled some weird crowds. I mind I did a gala day show for like a provost dinner or something like that. I have no clue. But it was in a tent in the middle of the field. And all the people there, like the youngest person there is probably in their mid-30s. So like there was no suspension of disbelief. They all knew what it was. So we went out there and we were first match out and I was like, they're not going to like this. But they were all pissed. So it was like, they didn't care what we did. They were just like, yes, something. And I'm like, okay, cool. So like I think it was another tag team match, and I think I gave someone a snapmare and like a kick to the back, and whether or not I slapped my leg, I don't know, but I got a good sound off of it, and then I just heard everyone in the room going, oh, and I was like, oh, you know what? That's kind of worked. Okay, cool. They're into it.
Man, I think it's funny like when people do have a drink in them as well. Like it is, you get the crowd a little bit going. Though one of the funniest stories that I've not told this in the podcast yet, so you're here.
First time ever. Lovely, great.
Here for the story. So one of my best friends that I met from wrestling, he was from Africa but born in Russia, so he was like, he had this Russian accent, and he was like 6'10", 6'11", so he was huge, and he was like a bodybuilder look. And obviously you've got me, who's like 5'11", like a small white guy, and this huge black guy, which is funny. Anyway, we were best friends, and we were in France somewhere. He was wrestling, and I was just kind of there, so I went out with him, and he put on a great match, and nobody was into this match at all, because it was just a bunch of French people, and this guy just putting on this killer of a match. Nobody was into it. There was this one guy who just like at the end of the match was like just like one slow clap, and I just remember him just standing up and going, "That's fucking shite," and leaving. I was like, all right, I guess I better go then. But it was weird. You get those shows as well, which a lot of people. There's a lot of young guys that watch this show, like 18 plus, obviously, or an 18 plus channel.
Got to say that to be for the legal reasons. Like,
there's he was saying, this guy, I know I'm not naming names, he was like, I want to be a wrestler, and I was like, oh, it's cool. And he was like, oh, I'll start wrestling training, and then I'll be in WWE in a year. And I was like, look, that's not going to happen. My first match was in front of like one person, like, and I've seen people go out and wrestle, and it's one guy clapping, or like, you're not going to be there in a year unless you're like Brock Lesnar or something.
Yeah, I feel like everyone has like really high expectations, because like nowadays you see like this like Tyler Bate is like 20. Was he 21? How old was he when he won the UK Championship?
I have no clue, man.
He was early 20s at least. I think it was like 22, 21. And I remember like seeing that at the time, and like that puts like, for young guys as well, that always puts like a high expectation on them to be like, right, if you're like 21, you need to be like this world caliber athlete who's like ready to go to WWE. And I feel like that puts a lot of pressure on young guys as well to be like so good at such a young age. And I'm like, nah, you need your time to develop and whatnot. And I feel like that's even the same with YouTube. Like I always compared myself to a lot of YouTubers who like have millions of subscribers, and they're like early 20s, like even 19, 18. And I'm like, because I'm 23 and I'm just starting to get my foot in the door of YouTube. So I'm kind of like, oh, what have I been doing wrong? But I just think it's like, it doesn't matter how old you are. It's like more or less just finding the right time or place to like kind of like come in as well and find your opportunities with that.
100%, man. I think like for it, I've got my own business and stuff like that. It takes years to kind of get your own business off the ground. And just like YouTube, it's like when people find my channel, they're like, oh, that's like, you're doing like good work, but it takes ages to build like that kind of base.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
I hate when people just like, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire next year. I've set up a business. You're like, oh, Camden, you're 10 years on that at least.
It's wishful thinking. Don't get me wrong, but it's never going to happen. It might if you're extremely lucky, but like 99% of the time, I don't think it will. Man, it just the guy just knows people on TikTok, and it's like the traders. And it's like, people are like, oh, I'm going to sign up to this guy's trading course, and I'll play for 100,000 in the bank next month. And you're like, that's not going to happen. Just be like, the one guy who done it is making his money by selling you the course. That's my biggest gripe on TikTok just now. And I sit in the toilet going through TikTok. That's the only time everybody ever uses it. And I see them come up, and I'm like, talking about all that shite, man. What are you talking about? TikTok's a guilty pleasure for me, because I'll say I don't like it, and then I'll spend about an hour and a half in bed when I'm trying to get to sleep. It's so easy to scroll by, and some content's really fun. You learn stuff as well. Like, I learned a 9 times table trick today. I don't know if you want to know it, but if you want to share it on your podcast, you can go ahead. If you want, man, on you go then. it blew my mind. Sorry for just stealing your story. I know this seems like it's all over the place, but these are literally what the podcast is always like. But if you hold your 10 fingers up and you like, so 9 times 2, you go to put the second finger down. Oh wait, you've got 18. Yeah, no, I know this one. Yeah. I didn't know that. I didn't learn that in school, and I was like, you. Aye, that was my. I think TikTok in general, like, it gives people. That's another thing that we should have mentioned when we were speaking about the pandemic and stuff like that. Everyone went to TikTok, and like they tried to like just like post anything they wanted to, and like some people are really creative with it and show like their creativity. Some people just shit post, but like some people are really creative with it, and you can see that, and it's really cool to see as well. But I think for me, when I spend like hours editing and I go over to TikTok and I'm like, oh, cool, this person just uploaded an 18-second video and has 2 million followers. Fantastic stuff.
I know, man.
That's no bitterness. That's no bitterness for me. That's just I respect the grind, respect the hustle. Like,
I totally respect it, but it's soul destroying. Like, you're sourcing podcasts, you're watching a 3-hour terrible Raw and stuff like that, taking notes and all this kind of stuff, trying to come up with content ideas, and then it's like just like a woman with a bum out, 6 million views. Should like, maybe I should just shave and put hot pants on, just stand in front of the YouTube thing. But
I think that would get views in some regards.
just for how bad it would be. But moving back to the wrestling stuff, in the world of wrestling just now, what's something that you dislike? If it's for me, it sometimes has to be wrestling Twitter, because it's just like a shit show sometimes. But what's something that you dislike about wrestling?
I was actually going to mention something similar. I feel like everyone kind of like has their own like expectations of what wrestling should be. And like, because I've seen a lot of people speak about like leg slapping recently, because obviously WWE having signs of "do not slap your thigh," which is fucking hilarious to me to see. But like, I think like, because I've seen a lot of like veterans and like bigger wrestlers on the scene being like, "this is good. It legitimizes wrestling, makes it not seem as fake." But then I'm like, bro, wrestling in itself is fucking ridiculous. We're in hot pants, sparkly hot pants, jumping, like running around the ring. Like this, like if you even think about it, the second you Irish whip someone and they keep on running, the game's up. Like in a real fight, you're not gonna like punch someone and be like, right, I'm gonna throw you by your arm and you're gonna come back. Like that doesn't work in a real fight. So the whole idea that like, oh, we're making wrestling look more legitimate by not slapping our leg, it's fucking stupid to me.
Man, I totally agree with you. I don't like. It is obviously the suspension of disbelief. It's like being, you know, magic's fake. So you go watch a magician, and you're like, how the hell do you pull that elephant out of the hat or something? But it's the same thing. You can suspend disbelief, but people need to remember
like,
that it isn't real.
You can like whatever type of wrestling you like Ilya Dragunov versus I can always not pronounce his name properly, but him versus Walter was the stiffest match I've seen in years, and like that is and it's really cool to see. And if you like that type of wrestling, more power to you. But if you want to watch like an Osprey versus Ricochet style match, and see people jump about a ring like they're human springs, and you enjoy that type of wrestling, that's cool. If you want to watch a death match, go straight ahead. Like if you like that type of stuff, you like that type of stuff. And the same goes for the wrestlers that participate in those types of styles. Like that's their style. That's how they want to portray themselves in a wrestling match. All the more power to you. But the second you go, no, that's wrong, you can't do that, that's when you're just a dick, man. Like,
No, 100%. Like I think it's so weird. Like when everybody can have their opinion, that's what I always say as well. Like when I do like a review show, or when I talk to somebody, I can be like, because I think William Regal and Daniel Bryan and stuff like that are some of the most boringest wrestlers ever. But I get why they're over. I get why people like watching them. But you can't tell somebody to sit down and watch a William Regal match. Like, come on, it's like for me, I would be like, it's not the best match, but I don't get, people love it. Like everybody can love what they want.
No, definitely, man. Like I really like technical style wrestling, and I think when I first started, that was similar to how I wanted to do. If you see any of my first year or so, I just did Zack Sabre Jr. moves, blatantly Zack Sabre Jr. moves, because I was a massive fan of his style at the time, and I think now I've kind of evolved to, because of my size as well, I've kind of started wrestling a bit more. I don't want to say flippy, because I'm not necessarily flippy, but I would like to think I'm kind of adapting more kind of like I don't want to say high flying, more agile stuff into my moveset, and being a bit more flashy with the stuff that I do. But yeah, it's just kind of like, because like I've changed from like wanting to do just purely technical based wrestling to be a bit more like striking. Again, not high flying, but roly poly we'll call. Just stuff like that. But again, like, if you like that type of wrestling, more power to you. If you don't, more power to you. Just don't be a dick and because I don't like this, you can't like that. I'm like, fuck off, Jim. You don't.
No, 100%. I think it's so weird. Like when people have those, like, I think I love Bret Hart. Like he's obviously one of the most technical wrestlers. I love his style, but Bob Backlund, I think he's the most boringest guy that's ever stepped inside the ring. But people like him, and it's like, that's what I love about wrestling. I can like something, you can hate it, you can like it, I can hate it. This makes a cool conversation.
I think because of OSW, I've retroactively liked Bob Backlund more.
No, man, I just, like, every time he steps in the ring, and I'm like, oh my God, this is...
Do you know,
it's dire to watch.
Do you know, like, his wee duck dance that he does beforehand, just...
No, at all. Like, it makes me... I just sit and I'm like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. I do watch-alongs for, like, classic 93 Raw, and some of them are dire to watch, and when Bob Backlund comes out, it's literally, like I should just clip them and put them up on TikTok, because I roll my eyes. I'm like, I can't watch this. This is terrible. But I don't like him. I get how people do like him. Like, it's that kind of style, but no for me. But like you says, everybody can like what they want. You don't need to... It's like me saying, oh, I like rock music, and you being like, oh, why you like this? You're wrong. Like, you shouldn't be like, oh, leave.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like, that can be the same with anything, music, films, whatever. Just like what you like, dislike what you dislike. Don't be a dick. Like, that's the message, really.
I'm pretty certain that's just the message for most of Scotland, really. But what's something you love, you like about wrestling today?
As I said, like, the variety in what people are doing is really cool to see, because there's something for everyone. You can't watch everything, as I've already said, but, like, there is something for you. And, like, I think, again, it's cool seeing people, because nowadays in wrestling, a lot of this kind of same characters have been done, and, like, a lot of I don't want to say originality's gone from wrestling, because it's not, but, like, there's been a lot of everything a wrestler can do with a character might have already been done in the past. So it's cool to see people bring new ideas and new styles and new gimmicks and new characters to the table, or put their own spin on it. Like, Darby Allin's kind of got this whole kind of, like, skater, goth, punk persona that I really kind of dig. And it's kind of like, because we've seen kind of those personas before, but it's like he's mashed, like, everything, like, his personality and, like, what he does with, like, he used to be a skater and whatnot, and he's kind of mashed that with like, kind of like gothic punk overtones, and it's kind of made a really cool character, and he's done really well for himself with that kind of persona. But it's cool to see people kind of bring more to the table in terms of, like, characters and, like, how they're introducing themselves to wrestling and kind of getting themselves over with a crowd.
100%. Man, that Darby Allin, he's one of my favourite wrestlers at the minute, especially in AEW. Him and Hangman Page are my two favourite over there. But the minute I saw Darby Allin, I've seen a few of these things, but in the independent scene, and then when I've obviously watched quite a lot of AEW, and then he's one of my favourite wrestlers of all time, which is Sting. I'm like I popped like a child when, like, Sting came out to help him and stuff. So yeah. It was all my...
I think like AEW especially has such a plethora of different talent. Like, their tag division is fantastic, obviously, because, like, you've got like the Bucks and Lucha Express, which again I really like as well. FTR. I had the whole story of, like, Kenny and Hangman going from, like, Hangman looking like the one that'll turn up until Kenny turning on Hangman. Like, really cool stories that have been, like, fleshed out for years and years. Obviously, I'm not the biggest fan of, like, how you have to watch supplementary material to understand where it's all going. But, like, I do really like the storytelling in AEW, as well as, like, I like seeing guys like Moxley come and be, like, this whole different beast than what he was in WWE. And, like, some of his stuff he's done with, like, I was going to mention the exploding Deathwire, the exploding barbed wire death match. There we go. Fucking hell. Which, to be fair, was a great match up until obviously what happened. But, like, even beforehand with his lights out match with Kenny, I really enjoyed watching, as well as Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa and their lights out match. I kind of, like, really started to like kind of more deathmatch style wrestling as well during this whole lockdown period. So, you know,
man, see if that deathmatch style. See if you go back and watch the Cactus Jack Terry Funk one. The exact same thing happens in their one. It's just the camera cuts. So, like, the camera cuts away. It's just sprinklers. Like, it's literally, it looks terrible. That's why they cut away. AEW didn't cut, and they're just sat there trying to sell this moment. You're like, I think everybody cuts.
what made it worse was, like, obviously they kind of covered it on the next episode of Dynamite with, like, Eddie Kingston being like, I passed out because it reminded me of, like, life when I was in prison and stuff like that, which is a good way of like hiding it. But if you watch it and see like these sprinklers go off and Eddie who just die in the middle of the ring, like because it would have been so good if they just had say like Moxley in the ring that went off and Moxley just kind of stood up and was like, "The fuck was that?"
I think I think that would have just been the best way of doing it, or they wouldn't have been able to like try to blow half the ring up or something. But I think see if they just stood up and they were like, "Is this it?" Like it doesn't. But I get what you mean with AEW as well. Try to watch like when it's like, "Oh, watch us on YouTube and watch this like podcast that we done," and you're like, "Oh, come on,
Yeah.
dude."
I think if you like, I'll never make a wrestling product, and I'll never like make a TV show or whatever. So I'm never gonna criticize someone and be like, this is what I should do, because I would be shit at it. But I think like if you're gonna have like a wrestling show, don't have like 6 hours of supplemental material that we have to watch just to know what's going on here. Like just like you can just easily recap it or whatever.
I would do like cliff notes if I'm having a conversation with somebody and like it goes on too long, like with my fiance, I'll say, "Yeah, like just give me bullet points." Like you know what women are like, you're like bullet point me.
Or like
I'll get it.
That's what the commentators are for as well. Like they're there to sell you the story and tell you what's going on. So
or sell the other stuff that they've got. Like try to sell go watch the YouTube because a lot of people want. Another thing that's a gripe for me with AEW is how many stables there. That's my like. Why is there so many of these groups? Like I get like there's no need to have all these groups. That's just one of my gripes.
I think AEW in itself, like they have such a huge amount of talent that they're kind of struggling to think of what to do with everyone.
Yeah.
Which is why I think some of these stables have came about. And don't get me wrong, it's like, what is it? The Pinnacle versus the Inner Circle is kind of the big thing with AEW at the moment. And like I rate everyone that's in each stable. Then like maybe not Hager so much, but you get but like the Pinnacle's got some fantastic wrestlers in there with like FTR, Sean Spears as well, and obviously MJF and whatnot. But like I feel like they're putting these in these stables because they're not really sure what to do with them in the singles run. So like, right, here's all these guys, let's put them in the stable. But then they forget they've got about 62 other stables left.
Yeah. And then you've got the Nightmare family breaking up as well. You've got like the Elite, and they're doing something. And Team
Taz as well, where I think Brian Cage is like subtly foreshadowing a turn. I don't know really.
I love like it's so much going on. Like there's a couple of guys I speak to that do content as well, and they love how much stuff is going on as well. But it's like pick a couple of storylines and let's just do those, because it's like, oh, this guy's turning this guy, but he doesn't like this guy, but he's in this thing, and you're like, what's going on?
I'm always happy that I don't like I'm happy I've stuck to like games for what I create content on, because like I would hate to do like the weekly wrestling shows or anything like that, just because there's so much going on and there's so much you have to kind of recap on a weekly basis as well. It's not for me, absolutely not for me.
Man, if you ever watch any of my reviews and it's like somebody with like a weird name, that's me. Like I'm terrible. I'm terrible with people's names, and also terrible with like pronouncing people's names. Like I'm like, this guy was wrestling that guy. I don't know what he's expecting me to say here. It was a good match, that's it. But it's my reviews are like just the way these are. It's just chill. It's no like I try and know, like I don't want to go into the integral parts of a match breakdown of like this guy done this move and all that kind of stuff. I'm like,
I wish I could do that. I wish I could be like really like in terms of just making a video or doing anything. I wish I could be just chill and kind of sit and like talk normally, not stutter at all, not just try and think what I need to say next, just be like yeah, this was really cool. No, if I try and make a video, I have to have like a fully laid out script. I can't have bullet points, because if I'm sitting there like, so this entrance is really cool, this game's like, it would be so bad. Like I need to know what I'm saying to go forward with it.
No man, I can't. I just write the matches down and then I'm like, right, go chat. I've got that kind of just that chill mindset.
Fair play.
I'm not a person that's like you put a script in front of me and that's me done. I'm like, nah, this is boring. I'm like when I was at school and stuff like that, I hated school. That's how I like wrestling, because I could go do it and go learn. I hate sitting reading something. You put me in a classroom or something, I'll fall asleep straight away. Like, I went to college and done personal training, and when we had to do weights and stuff, I loved it because it was practical. But when you're in the classroom and somebody's talking about how not to crunch up a salad because you lost some calories in it, I'm like, oh, this is shite, man. Like, looking at the window, there's a pigeon. Like, I'm terrible. I don't have ADHD or anything. I'm just a weird person.
It shows that everyone does stuff in their own different ways as well.
Definitely, man. I think like I said, your YouTube's really cool. I've took some tips from it as well. Try and use editing stuff because I don't like.
It depends how much time you have of that as well. Like, because I can only really get a video done. Again, this answer changes every time, but I feel like I can get a video done more or less once a month. But that's because I put so many references to different media and like so many kind of jokes and cutaways that I feel like it takes me a lot longer to get to finish. And plus, like because I've always got the motto, I don't want to put out shit just for the sake of it. Because now I'm earning enough to call it like a full-time job, which is super cool to me. But like, I never want, like, just because I'm doing that, I never want to just put out shit for the sake of it and be like, here you go, now give me money and watch this. Like, nah. If I'm doing something for my subscribers or whatever, I want them to get the highest quality content they possibly can get. If they're watching one of my videos, I want them to walk away and be like, that was a good video. So it's really thank you. I appreciate it so much when people say like your YouTube's really cool or I've taken like tips from it. But nah, thank you, man.
No, man, I've just got that chill mindset as well. Like, I'm like, everybody does editing, like, especially if you watch like a wrestling review, it's always like this like flashing in like editing and stuff and that, and I'm always like it's everybody does it, and I think a lot of people just like listen to me like moan about wrestling. Really, to be honest with you, because I'm normally recording them at like 6 a.m, so it's just me like before I've had my coffee shouting about wrestling. Normally works, but so heading into the end of the kind of podcast, I sent you over these there's 3 questions. I send you over the little list we've not followed at all, but there's one that we always end with, which I don't send you over, so it's a surprise. Oh. But who's your favourite wrestler of all time? It's the first one.
Right. Okay. So, I always want to be like, oh, Chris Jericho, Stone Cold, but the more I think about it, I think for me it has to be CM Punk.
Oh, man, see, I fell out of love with wrestling when he was kind of coming up, because that's when I broke my neck and I was like, wrestling doesn't love me. I never want to watch this again. But I've went back and watched his stuff. I like his wrestling style and stuff like that, but I wouldn't say he's my favourite wrestler.
For me, it might be a bit biased to when because that like 2011 was when I started to kind of really get into wrestling, like the whole kind of Christian versus I can't speak. The whole kind of Christian versus Randy Orton matches were stuff that I loved and enjoyed. As well as like obviously then I started to watch Raw and I started to see like Punk kind of cut these promos, and I think his promos shine out more to me than like his matches do. Because if you ask me what's my favorite CM Punk match, I think only a couple will come to mind. But when it's like, what's your favorite CM Punk promo? I'm like, oh, the one that obviously the pipe bomb, or the ones where he was like speaking, or the ones where he did just with Triple H, where it's like this isn't CM Punk talking to Triple H, this is Phil Brooks talking to Paul Levesque, or just like any of his like promo stuff. Even some of the stuff with John Laurinaitis, I bloody love, just because when he speaks, it's not him reading. You don't think it's him reading from a script. It's you when he speaks and says the stuff that he says. You fucking feel it. You think it's real, and that's the best thing about like Punk and why I love his promos. Don't get me wrong, I like his match. I love his matches as well. Like his stuff with Cena is always excellent. Going back and watching in Ring of Honor, his stuff with like Joe and Chris Hero. Not Chris Hero in Ring of Honor, but like some of his early work with Chris Hero as well is really cool to see.
Yeah, man, definitely. I think it was like I was a little bit older when he was kind of coming in. I remember him with the long hair when he was in ECW, the WWE reboot of it. Fair so I'm old, but I think I like him. Like I wouldn't say he's one of my best. And every time I say that I wouldn't put him up there with one of my best wrestlers, everybody's probably like, oh, you should go back and watch this match. Like I go back and watch it and I'm like, he's good. Like I've literally said he's good. I'm not taking away from it.
I think telling someone to go back and watch this match is never really going to work. Like most people have their favorite wrestlers, and if you say like go back and watch this match, then he'll be in your top 10. Like it never really works. So you'll be like, oh, that's cool, but like because I can be like, oh, go back and watch Joe versus Kenta Kobashi, and I'd be like, because that's one of my favorite matches, and I'd be like, go back and watch that. Not everyone will enjoy it, not everyone will like it, so like, yeah, that aspect never really works.
It's just one of those things, isn't it? Like when somebody has somebody that's like really close to them, like, oh, CM Punk's my guy or Daniel Bryan's my guy, and I'm like, they're just like, how dare you bash what I believe in? It's like, sorry for hurting your feelings, but no, man, I think it is cool. I like the pipe bomb stuff like that. That's probably the best. His promos are what he's probably best known for, really, isn't it? It's
definitely.
I was going to say he's no his in-ring skill. He is a good wrestler, but it's no like that's not what everybody's remembering him for.
I think everyone remembers him for his promos, and like because like I remember him for his promos. Like obviously the pipe bomb. I mentioned stuff with Triple H. He did like obviously he did like a whole thing with Vince McMahon where it's like, oh, give me this deal for a contract when he was in the ring, and like some of the stuff there is like, you will apologize. I apologize, you son. Like those quotes and the kind of promos will stick with me more than any particular match will.
And so the other question we ask is, before we get to the big one that everybody hums and haws about, is what's your favourite event of all time? That can be anything at all. What would be your favourite event?
I've never really got like a favourite event per se. I think like one particularly that comes to mind is like Money in the Bank 2011, because that was kind of the one that I stayed up and watched, and obviously it's quite a good show as well. But I've never really got like a favorite event in mind, like because I never really watched like the full events. I'll always just watch like the match, like a match itself. Mm-hmm. But if I had to give an answer, I'll just say Money in the Bank 2011 for the time being.
Man, everybody says
or maybe WrestleMania like 23. Or maybe WrestleMania like 20, 25, 26. I don't know. Like 23. No, 24. WrestleMania 24.
I thought you were going to say it. Everybody says the same one. WrestleMania 17. Everybody says it.
No, everyone says it. I'm not going to say that.
When you said WrestleMania, I was like, he's got to go for it, but you didn't. So that was I get what you're saying, man. I like those kind of that WrestleMania. Those kind of early 20s were really good. I think
like WrestleMania 24 was main evented by Taker and Edge. Again, I love Edge as well. So like obviously that was another match that kind of sticks to me. I really liked Shawn versus Rick in their match as well, and I think that was emotional. Big Show versus Floyd Mayweather is another one that sticks in my mind. And I think obviously WrestleMania 29. Besides Vince McMahon getting mauled by the Hart family, I think it was a pretty solid show as well. So no, it's just kind of those WrestleManias are ones that I can remember, because I think as well that's when I started to really get into wrestling. I went back and watched those like manias. So I think that's kind of stuff that stick with me.
Definitely, man. So the last question that we always ask, this is the one that everybody always like either knows the answer straight away or they get the old has a hard gin. So I'll give you what my answer would be after I've asked it. Is if you could replace yourself or add yourself to any match, replace somebody or add yourself to any match in history, what would it be? Mine would be, I would replace Owen Hart if I was as good as Owen Hart against Bret Hart in that blue steel cage at SummerSlam 94, because that match I learned a ton from it and it's one of my favourite matches ever.
Oh, all right. You've done me over here. I've been happy with my answer so far, but now I'm gonna be like, because I can tell you for a fact, I will do this podcast and I will say my answer right now, and I'll look back at it and be like, I should have said this, and that. I think if I'm gonna okay. If I'm replacing anyone, I would want to replace. It's gonna have to be a Punk match because I've bigged them up at this point. So I would replace my. I would. Can I add? Is it adding myself or is it just replacing another wrestler?
You can replace or add yourself. So it's up to yourself.
I would have to say like I would add myself into the Money in the Bank match with him and Cena, but then that would make it a much worse match. So, but like maybe I would replace myself with him and Taker. I would replace Taker. He can get jobbed out on that show. It's fine. So me and him in WrestleMania 29.
Sorry, Taker. The big guys are coming in. You need to.
Fuck off, Mark. Like, come on now.
No, man. So everybody always normally has like their answer straight away, or they don't have a clue. Like they try and that's why we don't send it. Because I love when you need to think about it on the spot.
I thought it was going to be favorite match, and I was like, this is going to be an easy one. Then you threw me a curveball, and I was like, wait a minute, no.
No, I like to keep it like that because then everybody always DMs me like a couple of days later whenever it comes out, and they're like, oh no, this one.
Oh, maybe as well. I've got to put over my tag team while I'm here. So, I'm a tag team with one of my best friends in wrestling, Stephen R. Miles, and we're the First City Saints. So I think in a tag team match, if I was going to replace myself with anyone, I would want to replace Beer Money in the 3 out of 2 out of 3 falls match that they had with Motor City Machine Guns. So it could be the First City Saints versus the Motor City Machine Guns. That's my final answer. There we go.
we got them, and I actually think that would be a really cool match. I've been watching quite a lot of your stuff, your tag team stuff, and that as well. It's really fun. If nobody's checked out your stuff, go. Obviously, you've got a ton of subscribers on YouTube, so go subscribe.
I have no clue. I say this every time, but I'm not funny. So,
go subscribe to you. Subscribe to me as well, because I will. Obviously, I'm here to promote myself as well. But go check out your man. See that Sabu interview? I plugged that worse on WWE than the network. Honestly, I'm like, go check out my Sabu interview. Did you know I interviewed Sabu? But
did you interview Sabu?
Did you know? No, I did. If you're listening, you got this far and you don't know, go check it out. But no, man, people need to go check out your stuff. I honestly only discovered you probably like 2 weeks ago, which is I try and no blow smoke. I'm not going to be like I've watched you for years, like I have to. Like 2 weeks ago, and I've been on binging your stuff. I've been binging your YouTube today and yesterday, but your wrestling is really cool. I could see you in that AEW, NXT UK kind of position in the next 10 years, definitely.
I need to get myself in much better shape, but thank you for that.
That comes in time, man. Don't worry about that. So, obviously, I've got your stuff in the description. Is there a match you want people to go check out on YouTube for you, or is there anything you want?
Typically, like when people type in my name, like because I've got this all the time from YouTube, like people type in Alex Webb Wrestling, and there'll be a couple of matches that pop up. Probably the best one that pops up there, the most popular one is my match with Dickie Divers from Reckless Intent, and it's for the world title. There's other matches that if people care to check out, there's it's on the Source Wrestling. It's on the Source Wrestling channel. It's the First City Saints versus KOE. I think they've titled it KOE versus Miles and Webb though, so I have no clue. But that's probably one of my favorite tag team matches. So yeah, I would urge people to check that one out if they want to see like me at my best. And again, there's other stuff that pops up when you type in my name. There's like a really cool elimination fatal 4-way that I had for Reckless Intent as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the time being. I didn't mention what that elimination fatal 4-way was, which is I think is titled Rob Mills versus Stephen R. Miles versus Theodorus versus Alex Webb. So again, that's another cool match of mine. But besides that, yeah, that's about it really.
No, man. I'll get people to go check your stuff out now because it's like you're really an undiscovered talent. For me, especially, I didn't really see your stuff. I really like it. Yeah, I was going to say you remind me of when I was younger, but I'm like a stone. You don't. I'd fall straight away. But man, thanks for doing the podcast. What I'll do is I'll end the recording here. I'll tell you when this is going to go up, not a wee aftermath stuff after it.